Hey everybody, I'm Christy Zito with the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance. I just wanted to give you a little bit of an update about what's been happening in the Capitol as we kind of see things start to come to an end. It's not going to be this week, but maybe by the end of next week, the legislative session will be over. And this is when things really start to heat up, and this is when the bills that leadership and the governor want to see get through really get pushed through. Well, the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance, we not only support good gun legislation, but we've been very careful to watch for legislation that would impact the gun industry, even though it might not mention guns by name. So we came out against a bill. It was Senate Bill 1163. And this was a bill that would make it so that cell phone manufacturers could be sued. Well, we don't think that's a very wise thing because we already hear talk about being able to sue gun manufacturers coming from the Biden administration. And we felt like, and our attorneys felt like, that this would just open the door for this kind of activity to take place in the state of Idaho. So we came out against this bill. The Idaho Second Amendment Alliance, that would be you, the gun owners, and members of the Alliance, we sent a letter to all of the members of the Senate and had it placed on their desks when debate on this bill started on the floor. Well, the vote was really close, and the bill actually failed on a tie vote. But during the debate, Senator Kelly Anthon, the senator from District 27, stood on the floor of the Idaho Senate so that this would be entered into the journals, into the permanent records on the Idaho Senate, and without naming us, he bashed the members of the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance. Well, folks, when the Second Amendment Alliance is bashed in public like that, it's not me, it's not Greg, it's you that Senator Anthon was talking about. It's you whose opinion he doesn't value. Now today, in the Senate State Affairs Committee, House Bill 295 had a hearing. The Idaho Second Amendment Alliance supported House Bill 295. An email went out yesterday, or the day before, I believe it was, asking Senator Guthrie to give Senate Bill 295 a hearing. Senator Guthrie mentioned when the testimony began on this bill that he had received hundreds of emails. And he kind of maybe poked a little bit of fun about those emails coming from the gun owners and how Representative Hill, the House sponsor of the bill, he would share them with him sometime. Well, this was an insult to the gun owners. And then to take it a step farther, Senator Anthon, again, senator from District 27, again, in the Senate State Affairs Committee, went on and on about how he is the Second Amendment guy, how he is pro-Second Amendment, and without naming us again, how the Second Amendment Alliance was only in it for the money, how our tactics were not right, and different things like that. I think you get the picture. First of all, we're not in it for the money because the money that you send to the Second Amendment Alliance we use to fight the battles that you pick. Now, here's a good example of that. I'm going to give you some backstory on this. We asked the gun owners what was important to them, and they told us to enhance our Stand Your Ground law so that we didn't see things happen like what happened to Kyle Rittenhouse and to the McCloskeys a couple of years ago. So the Second Amendment Alliance attorneys drafted good, strong legislation, and it was modeled after the Florida legislation that has been active since 2015 and very successful. So that pre-trial, you could make the plea of self-defense waiting until post-trial. And then if you were found not guilty, there was an ability for you to be able to recover your court costs, your employment costs, and other costs that you would have incurred getting to that not guilty point. Well, Senator Scott Herndon, senator from North Idaho, ran the bill. Now, the bill got a print hearing right out the gate. I mean, it was like the first or second day of Senate State Affairs hearings, it got a print hearing. And so now we refer to it as Senate Bill 1004. Now that that bill has a bill number, that bill belongs to the committee. Being property of the committee, that means that any member of the Senate State Affairs Committee at any time could call that bill up for a full hearing in the Senate State Affairs Committee. Senator Anthon, being the big gun guy that he is, having his finger on the pulse of what the people of the state of Idaho want, like he says he is, could have called that bill up anytime for a hearing. Did Senator Anthon support the gun owners of the state of Idaho? No, he did not. He turned his back on the bill that you asked for. He turned his back on what you felt like was important in favor of making sure that the NRA bill, House Bill 295, which we support, is going to get amended and pushed right through the legislature and be the going home bill that they can all go back to their constituents and say, look what we did for you. Now, I want to point out the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance does not rate legislators. We don't contribute to legislators' campaigns. We educate the constituents. They're not even constituents. We educate the citizens of Idaho about how the legislators respond, possibly to how they vote, but we don't rate them, and we report back to you about how legislators respond to the survey that we send out every year. The NRA gives a rating to legislators, and in the minds of a lot of Idaho legislators, that is a coveted rating. But let me tell you a little story about that rating. From my first day in office, when I served in the Idaho legislature, I carried gun legislation. I fought for gun legislation, good gun legislation, so that your rights were protected. I fought in that state house for you to have constitutional carry. When I had my first opponent, he received a good endorsement from the NRA, having never served, having never fought for your right to carry constitutionally. So from my experience and in my mind, that NRA rating, as coveted as it is, I have to ask myself, what does a person really have to do to get it? Because my opponent, my first opponent, the first time I ran again for the House, had never worked on legislation. So does this coveted NRA rating, does it influence legislators personally? Now, we see bills get rated by different organizations. IACI rates a bill. Other organizations rate bills. That wouldn't have the personal effect on a person's campaign that an NRA rating would. So I have to ask myself, why the big push for an NRA bill? And why does the bill of the people of the state of Idaho, what they asked for, languish in Senate State Affairs, and Mr. Second Amendment, Kelly Anthon, lets that happen when he has the ability to bring that bill up for a full hearing in the Senate State Affairs Committee? These are questions that need to be asked. We will continue working on Senate Bill 1004 until the last day of the legislative session this year. And when the legislative session starts again next year, if your desires haven't been fulfilled when it comes to protecting your Second Amendment right, we will be there again. And you will be fighting for you, for your right to keep and bear arms, for your right to defense, for your right to protect yourself from whatever comes your way when it comes to the Second Amendment. I want to thank you for your support. I want to thank you for being there for us. I want to thank you for those emails and phone calls that go into the Capitol. They're obviously having an impact. Until the next time, Christy Zito with the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance. Thank you. God bless and have a good day.